I've seen nobody responding that we can't record this. I would now start the recording. Okay, as I can see now, we have 18 participants in the webinar. A really good mix of participants, also some names I know, and I'm happy to see you and see that you are participating. Great. So let's go ahead. So the topic of today of our webinar is how to make international teams successful. And we have a special reason for that, to talk about that, as hmmh, as you might know us, is of course based in Germany and is a company founded in Bremen. But since last year, we also have a sister company which is located in India, in Trivandrum. And today, we will also give you some insights about the thoughts we have behind that, but also some very good real-life examples on how international cooperation and projects can work. For that reason, it's not only me giving this webinar. So on the right side, that's me. Some of you know me. Hello, I'm Gerd. I'm Managing Director at hmmh. Right now, in this year, at least 20 years of experience in e-business and e-commerce projects, starting with companies like Accenture or Warren Berger and Partner, where I experience a lot of international work environments with colleagues from, I would say, all over the world. New Zealand, of course, America, Australia, Thailand, and also India. I've not got to know a lot of Indian colleagues and had some very good times with them on many projects. So with me today is Adam. So Adam, can you introduce yourself?
Of course. Thank you, Gerd. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining today. Just a few facts about myself before we get into the meat of the presentation, so to speak. I actually first started working with software development teams in India 15 years ago now. At the time, I was working for an agency here in Dubai, and we struggled to find good development talent here on the ground. And we looked further afield. Initially, this started with engaging with third parties, and we actually set up our own team in India back in 2010. And since then, I've really spent the last 10 years managing and building various teams involving India, but also many other countries for clients largely located in Europe and the Middle East, with a few projects completed in the US as well. So we'll move on now, I think, to a few facts about Luminescent. So Luminescent. Luminescent was set up in 2015, so we're still a relatively young company, just 5 years old. We officially became part of the hmmh family last year in October, which we were very proud about. And Luminescent is really focused around the development centre, the key development centre that we have in Technopark Trivandrum, which you can see in the top right-hand corner of this particular slide. We do have an office here in Dubai, which is where I'm based, primarily to look after our clients here in the Middle East. But the 50+ developers that we have at the moment are centred in Trivandrum, in Kerala. And in terms of the services that we provide, the team really is split in providing support on digital projects, largely to agencies in the region. And then the rest of the team, the larger part of the team, is focused on providing contract development solutions, specifically to clients in Europe, the UK in particular, Germany, and elsewhere. We work with various different sectors, agencies I've mentioned. We do a lot of work with technology companies, with some charities and brands as well. And the range of technical expertise that we have in the company is quite broad. Having said that, there are particular focus areas. E-commerce is a major part of the work that we do, in particular SAP Commerce. And we do a lot of work with content management systems, particularly for some of the corporate website builds that we are involved with. And we do quite a lot of work in terms of mobile applications as well. So that's a brief background on Luminescent.
So, and why also did we merge together and join forces like Luminescent and hmmh? This is because in the market, we see a lot of people thinking about international teams. A quick note on the side, we're not talking about the word or the term offshoring too much in this project during this presentation, not during this project, of course, because we have some special thinking about that term and why we were talking today about international teams, as we think this is more appropriate to think about it and also more successful. So, but why do people think about setting up international teams? And especially from an hmmh perspective, as we have mostly German clients. The first thing is the job market and also the market for talent is quite tight. If you want to build up teams or staff larger projects, it takes 3 months, 6 months, even longer to get the right people onboarded to your team. And this is quite a long time in the current situation. Typically, teams have to be quicker than that, and you have to get shorter times for your projects when you have to be done. The second reason, of course, is cost, why people think about that. Of course, the cost of living is lower in India, of course, the wages and salaries are lower, and therefore there's a cost advantage in employing also an international team, as the salaries in the Western European countries, especially for software developers, has risen very steep in the last years. The third thing is also our clients have an international context. Almost every client we work for is not doing business in Germany alone. We have large corporations, we have car manufacturers, we have manufacturers of seats on our client list, and all those companies are working in a worldwide market. In Western European markets, they're going to Russia, they're going to US, they're going to India, they're making business in Australia. And of course, we have a lot of international client stakeholders and a lot of international client teams. So therefore, we now experience many projects we are starting right at the beginning with an international context, which leaves the question, why should this project then be done in Germany when the whole project team, even on the client side, is international? And there we are back to our topic for today. So how to make international teams successful if we start working with it. And we have some very nice real-life examples which Adam will present.
Thank you, Gerd. Thank you very much. And just to add to Gerd's point earlier about the size of the talent pool that is potentially available, India alone has 5.2 million software developers, which is 5 times more than exist in Germany at the moment. So when you look at combining countries like India, the Ukraine, and other places, the talent pool really does become absolutely huge and enables you to get very, very talented developers for a cost-effective rate, as Gerd mentioned. But okay, so right, I'll move on now to 3 case studies whereby we've put together and managed international teams on behalf of our clients. The first case study, I'm hoping most of you will know, Liverpool Football Club, who obviously won the English Premiership last week, which we're all very pleased about. So, Liverpool, we began working on this project with the lead development agency in the UK. And the aim of the project was to develop and build a new online store in Magento 2 commerce. Liverpool required that the platform be built in a period of just 3 to 4 months. And there was a limited budget for this particular project as well. The only way of rolling out a new build in such a time frame was to look at an international team, and that's what we worked on with the lead agency in the UK. We'll just move now to the organizational chart, or the project team chart, should I say, to give you a better idea as to how the team was put in place and the different locations involved. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen here the team in place with the client Liverpool Football Club itself. And really this is quite unique in many ways, because Liverpool already had quite an established team themselves. So you can see that as well as having a project manager who was the main point of contact for the different stakeholders, they also had their own small internal QA team, and they had a Scrum Master as well. Sitting in the middle was the design agency, also based in the UK. And then we have the lead development agency, which is how we initially engaged with the project. They also are based in the UK. In this scenario, the tech lead, as well as the developers, were based with us at Luminescent in India. So we were heavily involved in the briefing process. We had regular contact with the client, but also with the design agency and the lead development agency as well. And given that we took over the role of technical lead, as well as managing the development team and output from India, we were also managing the team in the Ukraine as well, which consisted of 2 back-end and 3 front-end developers. And this slide gives you a bit more information, as I say, about the hierarchy and the reporting structure throughout the team. Okay, thank you, Gerd. The next case is for a startup, or at least it was a startup in the UK. We began working with this client quite soon after establishing Luminescent, back in 2016, at the start of 2016. Executive Place, or Not Actively Looking as a platform is known, is there to connect senior executives with executive search firms on a global basis. It's probably an idea, if you think of it, a little bit like a LinkedIn platform, but specifically to connect senior executives, and it is meant for C-level candidates only. Today, the site has more than 20,000 registered users and 160 search firms signed up to the platform as well. Now, when we first started working with them 4 years ago, we initially just had 1 PHP developer on contract with them. And over the months and years that we've worked in collaboration, that team size has now grown to a team of 17 people who work hand in hand with the team that they have in the UK and elsewhere. I think another important point is that one of the things we've been able to provide them with is stability. Despite the fact that in essence we are, or at least we provide a contract team, some of the developers, in fact most of the developers that started with the project 4 years ago are actually still on the team, which means that we've been able to build up a large degree of knowledge on the platform, but also the business. And today, when new developers are joining in different locations, it's very often our developers in India that are training and onboarding the developers at the client's premises. So again, we'll move on now, and I'll give you a rundown of how the team is structured. From the client side, designated in blue, the team in the UK is led by the CTO, Andrew, who we've built a very strong relationship with over the years. They have an office based just outside London, and they have a series of team leads looking after feature development, user experience, etc. And then developers supporting them alongside. The client also has a small operation in Spain that is supported by a freelance developer in Bulgaria, and they look after data migration specifically when new search firms are brought on board to the platform. And then in green, you can see how our team is structured in India. We have a project head and project coordinator that again liaise very closely with the leads, the architect, and Andrew as CTO. We then have a series of team leads as well, which work in conjunction with the team leads in the UK, and then developers supporting them underneath. If we move to the next slide, This gives you some indication as to how close the team has actually become. Andrew, here on the left, was invited to attend a wedding of one of our developers and gladly obliged, and even brought his wife along with him as well for a holiday. I mean, this was a really nice thing to do, clearly, and it really had a very positive impact within the team. You know, as I say, the team is incredibly close despite being thousands of miles apart. Just one word of warning, if you do get invited to a developer's wedding in India and you attend, you will be expected to attend all weddings that you were invited to thereafter. But that's just a gentle word of warning. And we'll move on to the next slide. This is the third and final case study today. Unfortunately, we can't divulge who they are due to non-disclosure agreements, but they are a leading SAP Gold partner with offices in the UK and also in Germany. We actually began again working with this client in 2016. It was one of our first clients, and we've supported them over the last few years, and the team is continuing to grow. This particular client engaged with us because they had real difficulty in recruiting quality developers in London. And when they were able to actually hire them, they found themselves having a very high turnover of staff. SAP developers, at least at that time in London, generally preferred to work on short-term contracts rather than seeking permanent long-term employment. And that meant that they had a lot of churn within the project team. So what we set about doing is to recruit a team specifically for them. 4 years ago, we didn't have any SAP commerce developers in the team. And our in-house recruitment team set about a recruitment campaign across India, looking for developers that matched the exact requirements that this client had. And after bringing the team on board, we then set about training and integrating them with the team in the UK and Germany through a series of site visits and ongoing collaboration, which we'll come on to a little bit further in the presentation. And again, now we'll move to the team chart. An interesting point about this setup, again, is that recently we have taken the role of technical lead. This happened probably about 12 months ago. Prior to that, the client had always maintained that the technical lead role needs to be on the ground at the UK office. But having built such a strong relationship with them, that situation has now changed. And what that means is, again, as well as managing our own developers that work on multiple projects at any given point on time, specifically for this client, we are actually now managing the developers that are based in Germany, the small front-end development team that they have. And I think that's quite an interesting point to raise.
Okay, so what have you learned from these projects? So what I want to recap is that you've seen now 3 different environments of international teams. The first one, Liverpool Football Club, was a typical project-based assignment with a team which was assembled for the project and did the project, which maybe came back for other projects. But it was a project-oriented team. With Executive Place, we've seen something which was like kind of a product development team, which is also quite stable and is working in this environment of Executive Place. And the third example from the SAP partner is an example where another company built I can say also a quite stable team, what you told me, Adam, a team which even has a lower churn rate and turnover than the people in the UK. So it's really kind of a solid foundation also for that SAP partner to have that very stable team. So, but what connects these 3 examples? And we discussed that and we came up with some best practices we thought would be valuable. But first, we have something else.
Yes, and this really refers back to what Gerd was saying at the beginning of the presentation, we really shouldn't think of this as simply offshoring. We're not talking about briefing a project to a group of people that are sitting thousands of miles away and then just forgetting about it. What we're talking about doing is building a team that utilizes the skills of all the different team members, regardless of where they're actually sat. So it really is about building a team in multiple locations rather than just offshoring.
Okay, so let's go for the 5 best practices we identified. And I also see we have to speed up. Our time is almost up. So maybe extend some minutes. So what are the 5 best practices we found in our discussion? The first one is, of course, usage English language. I'll come to that back later.
And the second is coming together without borders.
Third one would be keep consulting close to the client.
And the fourth one, it's all about having a clear project process.
And the fifth one is, of course, like in every project, use an agile project process and go iteratively. So, but this is more important in international environments. Okay, maybe you're interested to dig a bit deeper. So I'll go on to the best practice number 1. So what is a problem with German? Of course, me as a German, I don't have any problems with German. German is absolutely fine. But the only project environment I will be functional in is exactly this. And no other project environment will work for me. If I have a German project language, German project documentation, then of course, everyone on the project must be German. Exactly, that is a problem when talking about international teams. And you can imagine why is that the case? Because firstly, German will divide your team. If you try to get someone on the team who's not speaking German, this guy or this person will be lost. He will be divided, he will not be integrated in the communication. And if you get more people on the team who are not native speakers, you will have 2 teams separated, not one socially and communicatively integrated team, but you will have many teams. And this is not good for the corporation. And of course, it will slow down communication. You're taking the first wrong step if you start with German project documentation. If you have anything in mind, even in the future of the project, that you might want to work with international developers, then you have to build that from the first minute of the project on an English project documentation, and you have to make sure that English is the project language being used. Because if you have any kind of translation step, worst case, people using Google Translator to translate project documents, which is really bad. Or you need people translating it to other people on the team. It will slow down your communication, and also you can't have daily stand-ups, you can't have project reviews and project refinements, which is really crucial for a good project. And of course, it will limit your team scalability, as the only way to have people coming on the team pretty easily and integrate is if you use German language as a project language, which is even easier for if we have to deal with clients who are also having English as a company language. And even many, especially larger corporations in Germany, are moving their company and project languages more and more into English because they're getting more and more international. So this helps a lot, having such a client who's already using English as their official language. So what we would promote, and I will just have this slide very short, is use English from the beginning, because it leaves you every opportunity and the flexibility you need to get into an international team. Maybe right at the beginning, but even if the team is not international right at the beginning, you have the option of making it international later on. So this would be clear advice. Use English from end to end, from client to software developer to consultant. This will enable you to be flexible in the future.
Okay, so, thank you, Gerd.
Number 2.
The second best practice about building relationships and getting to know one another. This is a diagram that highlights some of the cultural differences, if you like, and it's our view really that we need to embrace this rather than see it as being a potential block. Clearly, cultural differences will exist in any team, and I think the whole idea here again is about getting to know one another as individuals, rather than again just using the word offshoring to a group of faceless people. Okay, so sticking with the same thread, team building and collaboration. We really can't stress the importance of this enough. It's vitally important that we bring people together both physically and emotionally so that they do work as a cohesive team. And a good example of that is with Executive Place. Collaboration can happen obviously through video conferencing, but we would also strongly recommend that you plan for physical interaction between the team members wherever possible. It can be various milestones throughout the project, at the briefing stage, but we do think that that is very important and adds value certainly to the project. It doesn't necessarily have to be the whole team, it can be representatives from different units, but it does make a very big difference. Just move to the next slide, Gerd. And again, another example of the team coming together with a client, Andrew, from the UK. This is a team dinner that we had a few months ago, pre-COVID, I hasten to add. But again, this is something that we very much encourage both internally, but also with clients and project teams based in the UK and elsewhere as well.
Yes, and you shouldn't mind the distance. It's only some flight hours away.
Indeed.
Once in a while. Okay, being close to your stakeholders and markets is still extremely important. Yes, of course. And the easy reason why is this kind of pre-COVID setting, of course, where people came together and had creative workshops. As we all know, this works much better if you come together in person. And why does it have to be close to the market? Of course, if you do consulting, our concept to create maybe a new website, a new online shop, a new kind of experience for a special market, it's good to know the culture, the people, the language, to create ideas which are really specific to that and which really work. And also, I told you before that English is the key to a very flexible project and have a good project team. On the other hand, of course, it has some added value if you can do such kind of workshops in the native local language. It's, okay, for Germany is of course German, but also there can be other settings. I told you before, we have also some very international clients, and of course there's sometimes like a core product owner and a core concept team sometimes which are located in Germany. But there are these settings where also the German company has subsidiaries, Spain, Italy, France, Russia, US. And sometimes there have to be adaptations for these markets or even completely new concepts to address these markets in the right way. So even in these settings, it can be good to have people who know the market, who speak the language, or who are on the ground there with the market product owners defining their requirements. And after that, you can go into the development phase and staff your team. But this is one key thing. Besides internationality, you have also to be local to grasp the local requirements and get the right thing done and get the right thing created.
Okay, thank you, Gerd. So we'll look now at why classic project management principles are still very much important, and we'll talk a little bit more about the project process and its role within the management of international teams. It's certainly my view, and I think our view, that the main reason that projects fail involving international teams is exactly the same reason why projects fail involving domestic teams, and that is a poor software development plan. Roles and responsibilities clearly need to be defined at the outset of the project. As Gerd suggested, there are certain roles we believe and strongly recommend that are based on-site, close to the client, such as the project manager, the business analyst, and potentially the technical architect. And this group can then break down the development tasks or stories into more individual chunks. From experience, we also believe as well that it's vital that everybody involved in the project has a very clear understanding of the business case and the business goals, as well as the specific technical requirements that they will be working on. One of the things that this allows our development team to do is to work in a far more consultative approach. If they receive a specific brief when it comes to technical requirements, if they have a more holistic view of the ecosystem that they will be working, they will be able to make far more productive suggestions in terms of how something might be able to be done differently, for instance. And it also limits the communication gap between the individual stakeholders as well.
Okay, how's it all integrated? Why does agile project management or agile feedback loops work are especially useful in these environments? Of course, you have this gap in the project team who is not physically in one room. And of course, misunderstandings can occur more often when people are not in one room, or not people are chatting during their coffee break about the project requirements. And of course, people helping out each other is more frequent if they are all in one room and if it's a very experienced team. So, in our opinion, doing it in an agile way with close feedback loops helps also build the team itself, helps the exchange, and especially the project reviews helps to straighten out any kind of misunderstandings of what the result should have been, or understanding on how it should be done. It fosters a good discussion inside the project team to have these kind of processes, which always agile development emphasizes communication in the team. And that's a good way to learn it, and it's a good way to bring the team together. So we would never recommend doing it in a waterfall, a kind of project approach. The best way to do international projects with distributed teams is, in our opinion, always to have an agile process, which helps keep the team come together and to foster communication. The other thing you've seen, Adam has put up quite large teams with the SAP partner or with executive place. And this doesn't happen overnight. Like, yes, here are 17 people, here are 10 people, here are 5 people, yes, go with it. No, it doesn't. So it goes also step by step. And also first onboarding a technical architect or team lead, who is then able to give his knowledge to other people who are on board at a later point of time is also a good approach in building up the team step by step. So we wouldn't propose like, okay, go with 5 to 6 people in the beginning. No, go also step by step, do an onboarding of the international parts of your team and enlarge it. And of course, if you want to do that, you need to have some people on the ground in India, in the job market where you need people from. That's something which Adam can explain to you, I think, pretty much how does it work at Luminescent.
Sure, thank you, Gerd. I think that's absolutely correct. I mean, the start of the engagement, we will obviously look at the requirements that the client has and see if we can match those requirements with the existing team members that we have within Luminescent. That is sometimes the case, but very often we will need to go out to the market and undertake a recruitment campaign to find the exact skill sets that the client is requiring. And this is the recruitment process that we have in place at the moment. You can see it's quite a rigorous process. There's various rounds of interviews that take place between the candidate and the HR team, but also with some of the developers as well. We have various rounds of technical assessment as well, and code reviews, and then a final step that involves the senior management team as well. We are very lucky really in many ways at Luminescent. The recruitment team we have are very strong, and they have some fantastic contact throughout India. Generally speaking, from a requirement coming through to actually getting the person on board, the process usually takes anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks. So we can turn around requirements very quickly.
Great. So this is of course a key to have kind of really stable team, as you showed us in your examples, to have stable teams and also avoid churn in the team, which always supports a lot of productivity. Okay, how does it all work for hmmh and Luminescent together? Currently, our vision is to make it as easy as possible to cooperate with any colleague from Trivandrum, India, Bangalore, or Pune, where your people are, Adam. In the same way, we employ people from Hamburg or Berlin, Bremen, or Munich. Currently, this is as easy as possible. You can get people on the project within hours inside of Germany, and our goal is to make it as quick with any other colleague from Luminescent. So this will create for us the possibility to create mixed teams, but we have to meet some prerequisites for that, and that's a framework we are building right now since last year. An integrated framework of infrastructure, of common technical standards, of a common tool set, and of course, which is for our German clients pretty important, a legal framework of contracts, and that our contracts reflect the possibility of having an international teams due to GDPR requirements, but that everyone in our clients can be sure that the legal work is already done and that is safe. And of course, we are also working on English as a project language. We are using that more and more. And we are, of course, having people at hmmh who have brought some international project experience with them when they joined hmmh. And of course, we are building up some new project management skills in this area. And so this is the step we can now offer together. And that's the team. We're talking about international teams. That's a very international team. There's a very low German participation in it. On the right side, that's me and Stefan Messerknecht. I think he was participating right now. Last year, October, when we were actually there, and we felt very welcomed and met a lot of people with excellent technical knowledge at your side, Adam.
Thank you very much. And I think what was quite interesting from our side were the similarities between the way that we work as well, in terms of the project processes, the way that we handle projects. There were clear similarities, and I think that's helped us obviously gel together in a very good way.
Right. So I think we jump straight into the Q&A session. Right now, I looked into the chat. I didn't see many questions up to now, but yes, let's open this up. If you have any questions, how did we do that? How did we come up with our ideas? Adam and I, we are open now to answer everything.
Absolutely. It's an open book today.
So Adam, okay, it was just a time. One question would be, how did you start with Luminescent? How did you get people with so many work experience? It's a very young company, but you also have people with much longer work experience. How did it come? How did you convince them to join Luminescent?
It's a good question. We started really with the leadership team, if you like, at Luminescent. Ranjith, as you know, was one of the founding members, who is our executive technical director. And once we had those building blocks in place, it was a lot easier to sell the vision, if you like, of the company to the rest of the employees. I have quite a lot of experience within the industry. I've worked on some quite large scale projects, and I also had a very clear vision of what I wanted to do with Luminescent. As I say, in terms of Ranjith and the others, it was really about presenting that vision to them and talking to them about the opportunities that existed to scale the company rapidly. And you know, as a result of that, we have got a very passionate team. They are very excited very willing to go the extra mile to make not just the projects work, but to grow the company as well.
Okay, so great. I have one question here. Hey guys, how do you deal with cultural differences? Do they exist? And if yes, okay, I tell you, yes, there are cultural differences. They exist. What is your mitigation strategy?
Another very good question. Another very good question. Clearly, yes, as Gerd mentioned, there are cultural differences. But as I say, I believe that there are cultural differences in most teams, whether you're working in India or elsewhere. I think one thing to say is that the team that we've built, certainly the senior members, and I think that follows through, all have a lot of international experience already. So if we take the SAP team as just one example, all of the team members there have worked on projects, multiple projects, in Europe, the US, in Asia. They have a very clear understanding as to what's expected by these different markets and the stakeholders within them. And I think that does make a big difference. And that kind of ethos, as I say, is kind of filtered down throughout the organization. In terms of how we mitigate for it, I'll give you one specific example. I was speaking earlier about how it's important that everybody in the team has a clear vision of what the business goal of a particular project is. And I think one reason that that's particularly true for companies such as ours in India is that there is a tendency in wanting, obviously, to keep the client happy, to do everything that is asked of them. So if a developer has a specific set of requirements, there is a tendency, certainly amongst some of the junior members, to follow that to the letter, rather than ask questions or to think about how that might be done in a different way. And I think that, again, when a developer has a clearer idea of what the overall objective of the project is, it does give them the confidence to look at a set of requirements and to provide more of a consultative approach rather than just doing the list that's given to them, if that makes sense.
Yes, I also had a talk with a project manager of ours yesterday who had work experience before with Indian colleagues. And she told me one thing. It was like, yes, Adam, you told us, of course, the work experience of the Indian colleagues with Western European clients makes a difference. Yes, definitely. And on the other hand, my German project manager colleague told me, yes, they had the experience that she had to change her way of communication, because when it's Germany, like, okay, you just put one sentence, yes, we do that, okay, then we do that, a little bit like this. And she was always relying on that. If you put it in one sentence and you get a simple okay, yes, that's okay. But she had the feeling, yes, no, the communication is a little bit different. You have to talk a little bit more. You have to emphasize a little bit more. You have to repeat some things, and you really talk about these things and exchange more about these kinds of stuff before. It's really kind of an agreement. And this took her some time to change a typical German way of communicating. And she said after she grasped the concept, it helped her a lot. So of course, also the point, get together and let people work together, but be aware that these differences are there, and get people on board who already has this experience. Also people like Adam, people like Zishan, the project manager I was talking to yesterday, who have the experience and can transport it into the team. Okay, here's another question. How do you make sure that technical standards match between Luminescent, hmmh, and the client? I would say currently we are exactly establishing that. So the Luminescent colleagues have a vast experience in working with client environments. Every client you can experience, expect the SAP Gold Partner has another environment than the Magento project done for Liverpool Football Club. So, of course, these environments change a lot, but there's a lot of experience in different work environments. Even at hmmh, not every client has the same work environment, as some standards are customer specific. But in HMH, we have a specific standard of doing continuous integration, of doing documentation, of doing unit testing, if you look at the technical standards. And currently we are in the process of kind of harmonizing these zwischen Luminescent and hmmh, and we're exchanging our common standards and trying to build a common ground for exactly these projects. So that we don't build them up in one project, but in every project we have the same common ground for that. Also in tools, which also help to do that because of technical standards, technical rule sets for quality assurance and unit testing, code inspection. Adam, anything from your side?
I would agree with everything that you've said. I think, you know, just to summarize, I think it is important, certainly for the more senior members in the team, to bring people on board that have that experience of working with international partners already. And, you know, the way that we tend to work is we try and be flexible with our processes. Yes, we work in an agile way. Yes, we use very similar tools to hmmh and certainly our other clients as well. But our team are used to adapting in the way that they work to meet the client's way of working ultimately. We provide a support service, we complement existing teams, and as a result of that, the teams that we have at Luminescent are very adaptable to working in different ways.
Okay, so one more question here. So we are already over time, but I think we'll take more questions if they come. Does the lockdown in India affect the projects?
Another good question. From our experience so far, it does not, no. The team are working incredibly efficiently from home remotely. To be honest with you, we have developers already that work from home and had developers that worked from home before lockdown was ever even an issue, or indeed COVID. A number of our SAP Commerce developers work from home most of the time. When they're not on the client's premises in the UK, they are generally working from home. They do visit the development center in India for various meetings and when we have get-togethers, but we are very used to working from home anyway, so it's nothing new for us at Luminescent. I think another important point to mention is that whilst people are still working at home with Luminescent in India, we are expecting to get the office back up and running very soon. We have been quite lucky in as much that COVID has not affected Kerala in the same way that it has affected other states in India. In many ways, it's been left relatively untouched.
Okay, so looking at the watch, is there one more question? I will take it. So if not, we are well over time. Yes, so if you have any more questions, of course you can contact me or Adam or hmmh anytime.
Absolutely.
If you want to, if you're interested in some slides, so I think we will be happy to share them. We will only leave out customer specific details, which we don't want to run around in the world. And yes, so if you have any more questions, we were happy to answer them. Come back to us and or contact us if you want to. We will be happy to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for the session and thanks for your participation. And yes, I wish you a nice Thursday. I think we're about lunchtime, and enjoy your meal, I would say. And goodbye for today.
Goodbye. Thank you.